Good morning.
Good morning, Father.
So today is the feast day of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, and we recognize the humanity of the incarnation of Jesus as he took on our flesh, and he shared in life with us. He shared in having a heart, right? And so that heart of Jesus, which burns with love for us, which was pierced on the cross, that most sacred heart of Jesus is a model of love for us in our world. And we recognize that it's a sacrificial love, right? Because his heart was broken, it was pierced, and it burns. And so love is a sacrificial love that we are called to proclaim the gospel to the world. Jesus says, "I give praise to you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, for although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, you have revealed them to the little ones." And he says, "No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wishes to reveal him." And so we are reminded that we are called to be united to Christ. We are united through baptism. We are united in the sacrament of Holy Communion, whereby we are transformed to be made more and more as God. But we also recognize that on the Feast of the Sacred Heart, we're called to offer acts of reparation for the offenses against the Sacred Heart. Now, many people say that the offenses against God and against His church are horrible, but if we think about it in the early church, the church being persecuted was able to grow. It's only a church that is not comfortable that can grow. It's only a church that is persecuted and a church that is made to think and to stretch and a church that is made to make sacrifices that can grow, right? We look to the church in Europe and it's nearly collapsed. We look to the church here and we're filling up here in Georgia because you guys came down from up north or because people come up from south of the border, but around the rest of the country, not so much. But you look to Asia, you look to Africa, where really people are persecuted and the churches are full. And so persecution is kind of a necessary evil, right? We don't want persecution. We don't want religious persecution, but yet it allows us to live more as Christ did, right? It allows us to have a more sacrificial love. It allows us to be... It allows us to share more in his passion. So the nonsense that's going to happen in Los Angeles later today with the sisters of whatever that are a mockery of religion and Catholicism and religious life, we recognize that highlights the role of the church in the world, right? We can recognize that the role of the church and the mission of the church is highlighted as she is persecuted, that people see, right? People are made aware of the church. People are made aware of the teachings of Christ. But hopefully through our response, people can be made more aware of the love of Christ as we unite ourselves in his most sacred heart. So at the end of this Mass, we will pray at the invitation of the bishops across the country in reparation, the litany of the Sacred Heart, but also just continue to remember that from persecution the church grows. From the blood of martyrs grow the seed of faith. And so as we celebrate this feast day of the Most Sacred Heart, let us ask that our hearts may be ever more transformed, that we may be made more and more like Christ in our lives, and that we may be able to love with the sacrificial love that Christ has for each and every one of us.